Hi, we're here representing the Planetary Health Alliance Roadmap Working Group to explain the policy brief toolkit we've been working on to help communicate planetary health to policymakers. I'm Dr. Jennifer Cole, a senior lecturer in global and planetary health at Royal Holloway, University of London in the UK. Though I'm now a full-time academic, I worked in policy research for over 10 years.
I am Dr. Ashley Aimone, Assistant Professor and Planetary Health Educator at the University of Toronto's Dalla Lana School of Public Health in Toronto, Canada.
Hi, I'm Dr. Olasunkomi Ajala, Director, Research, Education and Policy Advocacy at the Center for Health Economics and Development in Nigeria. I'm also a planetary health educator at Anchor University, Nigeria.
The ability to write a good policy brief and to get policymakers to read it is vital for ensuring that planetary health concepts and scientific evidence can be translated into action for environmental change.
This video guide has been produced by the Planetary Health Alliance Roadmap Working Group to help planetary health researchers, practitioners, and activists across the world to ensure they can communicate with policymakers effectively and efficiently.
Movement building and social change is one of the pillars of planetary health, and good policy engagement is necessary to ensure that any such change will be lasting and sustainable.
The authors of a recent report by the World Health Organization on social inequalities and health risks took time to explain to their readers what a policy brief is and what it contains. This is a great guide for anyone new to the idea of policy briefs and policy engagement, and you can see a link to the report and under the picture of its cover on the slide.
They explain the policy brief as follows. A policy brief is a short publication specifically designed to provide policymakers with evidence on a policy question or priority. Policy briefs bring together existing evidence and present it in an accessible format. Use systematic methods and make these transparent so that users can have confidence in the material. Tailor the way evidence is identified and synthesized to reflect the nature of the policy question and the evidence available. And they're underpinned by a formal and rigorous open peer review process to ensure the independence of the evidence presented.
It's important to think about what educational background the reader of a policy brief or report is likely to have and how this might affect their understanding of the brief's content. Most policymakers didn't study science at university. They are more likely to have studied law or politics or history and may not be able to easily interpret complicated graphs or statistics.
It's vital that any evidence included in the brief can be understood easily by all readers, regardless of their academic background. Graphs and illustrations should be clear, simple, and unambiguous. You can see that the graphs here are difficult to understand if you're not an expert. You can't easily see what they're showing. They're fine for a paper intended for an academic journal, but they don't work so well for a global audience.
The images on this slide are much easier to understand. You can more easily tell what they're showing, even if you're not an expert. The graph on the left shows that over time, the number of days per year above a safe temperature has been increasing. The image on the right shows the health harms caused by air pollution. They are much easier to understand and thus would be much better for use in a policy brief than the images on the previous slide.
There are many examples of good policy briefs that can help to show you how to produce one. There are a number of organizations that regularly write policy briefs, and a good way to understand how to do so is to read the briefs they produce and become familiar with the structure and the approach. This slide contains links to some excellent examples of policy briefs, though there are many others, and we have developed a template and a guide that you can download and use yourself. Good policy briefs are clear and concise, present robust evidence in an easy-to-understand way, and do not offer opinions or tell the reader what they should do. They allow the reader to make their own decisions informed by the evidence presented.
A standard format for briefs is to contain a key messages section, an executive summary giving a succinct overview of the findings, and sections setting out the key evidence. The idea is to provide instant access to key information and additional detail for those involved in drafting, informing, or advising on the policy issue. Policy briefs provide evidence for policy makers, not policy advice. They should not seek to explain or advocate a policy position, but to set out clearly what is known about it. They may outline the evidence on different prospective policy options and on implementation issues, but they should not promote a particular option or act as a manual for implementation. They should not include opinions from the author that cannot be backed up by evidence or that do not logically follow from the evidence that's been presented. They may provide examples of where implementation has been successful elsewhere, with explanations of why.
When you've produced your policy brief, you need to make sure the policymaker who can take action will read it. Policymakers are far more likely to read hard copy briefs than an email, which can easily be ignored or overlooked. Post or hand your brief to the policymakers if possible to ensure they receive it, and explain its relevance when you do. Offer to meet with them to follow up and give them more information. You might also want to send the brief to local journalists and radio stations. If they become interested, it may nudge the policymakers to take action.
If you're a planetary health educator, you might want to use the following lesson plan to help teach your students about policy briefs. Start by choosing a planetary health issue affecting your country or community, and prepare a brief using a resource of your choice as a guide, for example, the International Development Research Center. You can use the following steps to help you think carefully about your approach and the product. Step 1 would be a topic proposal. What is the issue that warrants a policy change? Who is the target audience and potential stakeholders or partners? Outline your proposed topic using this template that we have provided a link for. Step 2 would be a methods proposal. How will you provide evidence-based policy recommendations? You can outline your approach for gathering and analyzing supporting evidence, again, using this template that we have provided. Step 3 would be the synthesis and write-up. Develop your recommendations and pull it all together in a structured paper using the template that we have provided in this toolkit. Step 4 can be an audiovisual presentation. How will you translate or mobilize your recommendations using other formats or platforms? Prepare a communication about the brief using an audiovisual medium of your choice. For example, a presentation, a video or photo compilation, maybe a podcast style storytelling, or an interview, etc., etc.
We hope this has given you a better idea of what policy briefs are, how to write them, and how to use them to influence policy. All the evidence in the world won't lead to change unless people are able to understand and act on that evidence, for which good policy engagement is essential. On the following slide, there are some further resources you can use to develop your planetary health policy engagement. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.